to Candoor, where candid conversations open career doors. I'm your host, Christina Hu, and today we'll be having a candid conversation with Laquavious Thomas. Laquavious is an engineering project manager, or EPM, at Apple. He graduated in May of 2022. With experiences at Tesla, SpaceX, government work, and construction, his non-pathical career path and abundant amount of exposure can help answer the questions you may struggle with. Laquavious, it is a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Great. Well, we've heard a little bit about your bio, but tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so, a little bit about my background. I am an electrical engineer major, actually double major with electrical and computer engineering, graduated from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Originally grew up in Houston, Texas, born in Auburn, Alabama. And then just a little bit more, I'm the oldest of four, so I feel like I kind of have to be that pillar for my little siblings that I have. I'm the first engineer in my family as well, so that was definitely a tough task there. And then I definitely like to do a lot of different things outside of just school. I'm in another nonprofit organization called Student Career Studios, where I sit on the board of directors there. I am still part of National Society of Black Engineers, or many may know as NSBE, where I sit there as the Conference Planning Committee Speakers and Workshops Chair. And then outside of work, man, I'm a typical, Gen Z. I like to play video games. I like being outside. I like watching Netflix, watching HBO Max, and things like that. So definitely try to, find a way to still have a life outside of the things that I do.
That's awesome. So, what does a day look like in your life? Or this could be a typical work day, but we'd love to hear about the non work things as well.
Yeah, so I'll go through like a typical work day. So, for example, a Monday or Friday are the days that right now that Apple has that we work in a virtual aspect. So, I'll typically wake up and try to get some cardio in the morning to just get the blood flowing and the brain thinking. And that's just like walking, maybe some stairs or something like that. And then from there, you'll go to your breakfast and then your work day, of course. So, me being an EPM, one of the things that we do a lot is we work with our in-region teams, which are our China, Vietnam type teams. So we typically open the day with a lot of emails from them where we're like, okay, we need to just throughout the day kind of respond to them because their day doesn't start until about 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'll kind of just spend my day making sure I get back to their emails and their questions. So that's kind of how I'll open my day. And then from there, I go into like my typical one-to-ones. That's kind of how I start my day, just so I can kind of learn with different people on my team, being a new hire, but also with that, like being able to network and expose. It's like we start our days with one-to-ones where you're not thinking too hard. From there, you go into your workday meetings. And for myself as an EPM, that can be me leading meetings where we're driving schedule issues, design changes, where we're working with our GSM teams, which is Global Supply Chain Management, to get vendors to, work on their pricing. And that's kind of how, like I mentioned, a virtual day would go. And then, you have your lunch and your in meetings. And one thing about working with our in-region teams and at Apple, we're flexible with our schedules. So sometimes I'll work like let's say, 9:30 to 10 to like 3, and then I'll take a break. And like I mentioned, I work with our in-region team, so some days I'll get back on in the evening to make sure like they can have that communication with me, since I'm leading that conversation from our Cupertino teams here in California to make sure that all that information is transferred. And then if I go in office on a day, typically I like to bike to the shuttle. I don't like to drive to work because California gas prices, so I'll bike to the shuttle. And Apple has shuttles that take you to work. From there, I'll hop on the shuttle, and the shuttle actually has Wi-Fi, so I can start replying to emails there, actually, so I don't do that in office. I'll get to work, and I'll actually do like a 30-minute walk, just to same flow, get that brain flowing, get that blood going, kind of getting ready for the day. And then from there, we have like our meetings that we have where we'll do in-person, couple whiteboard sessions throughout the day, just on different issues that may be occurring. And then I typically take like an hour for lunch. Like, please, like, use your lunchtime, not necessarily just eat lunch, but also use it to like find out, collect your thoughts, calm down for the day. So I'll do that. And even if I'm doing like lunch with someone, let's network, let's get to know more people. Let's get to figuring out what pivot point can I take for that next step in my career goal. And then from there, kind of mentioning same thing, finishing the day around 3. And then I'll typically try to hit the gym that we have on site. After leaving the gym, getting back home, settling in, maybe watch a little football if it's like Monday or Thursday, basketball season starting, or even baseball playoffs. And then from there, maybe being a little bit available via email or text message for our in-region teams, and then ending the night off there.
That is awesome. What a packed day, but I also appreciate that you carved out specific space to recharge, get the blood flowing, and regroup and continue to pay it forward. That's awesome. I'm curious what inspired you to go into engineering project management and how your career goals have evolved or changed over time.
Yeah, so specifically for engineering project management, it's very relatable to something I've been interested in for a while, which is also like technical program management, project management. They all have like the same foundational skills, which is what I originally aligned to. And kind of what got me inspired into that is I am the product of a COVID graduate. I was in the midst of the pandemic during that time where I was taking like my electrical engineering labs that would have been in person. I was taking some of those virtual. And one thing that I learned for myself, and it could have been used in a negative aspect or positive, is I don't believe that us being COVID graduates got the same technical expertise that we could have gotten if we were in person. Being an electrical engineer, I didn't have a chance to kind of touch on the electrical hardware. I didn't touch the microcontrollers, the PCBAs that we would normally do in labs. It was like I'm looking at it on the screen and trying to learn about it with the different resources online, but it's not the same in my opinion. So for myself, I was like, how can I still use my technical engineering background, but also leverage soft skills that I have? So a little bit about my soft skills background. I was like president of NESB. I was also the senator. I sat on the regional board. And so you gain a lot of like non-technical skills there that are very needed. You know, how to communicate with others, how to manage your time, how to budget your own money. Like these are a lot of transferable skills that can be taken into like a PM role that a lot of people don't necessarily have exposure to, but you may have exposure to that. And so when I learned about that, I did a supply chain engineering role. And with that one, that kind of opened the door for me to like, I kind of like the idea of like a TPM or a PM because I was able to see a PM lead the team, gather a group of people to kind of complete a common goal. And I use the same thing for like sports. If you were like a captain of your football, basketball, softball, volleyball team, they all like, you're like the person in charge. You're like the one who's like driving others to like get to their full potential. And I like that idea because I just enjoyed the fact of like giving back to people, but helping people get to where they want to go. And then for myself, I enjoy talking to people, getting to know people. So that's something that's very helpful. And having the technical background definitely allowed me to align like, okay, let's go into a PM role where I can use that technical background if needed with the engineering team, but also use the soft skills that I've accumulated over the time.
That's absolutely wonderful. I love how you broke it down into the different skill sets and where you really developed those skills and how you were able to kind of pull them together into your role. I'm curious if there were any challenges that you've had to overcome in your career, and if so, how you overcame them.
Yeah, so a lot of challenges throughout my career, and those can start on the technical end. As I touched on a little bit in the last question, you know, not having some of that in person engineering lab experience, that in person classroom interaction, that the office hours that you would go to with professors, things like that. And then also, you know, other challenges. Me personally, I'm a black man, you know, I'm a minority as well. I have long hair. I have tattoos throughout my arms. I have earrings that I normally wear. I typically wear my Jesus piece. So those are like stereotypical things that a lot of people I notice struggle with in the professional industry at times. And a lot of companies are working on changing those, but not all have evolved to incorporate those changes to allowing people to be themselves at work. So one of the biggest challenges for myself was like in my researching phase of finding where I wanted to work, finding places I know that would accept me for me, no matter what the cost was. They're looking at more so my brain and my knowledge and my capabilities rather than what am I coming to work looking like or what do I look like to others. So that's a challenge that a lot of minorities may face because some people may have their minority, you know, quote unquote thing. Maybe they have a thick accent. Maybe they look a certain way. Maybe they like a certain type of person. All these different things that fall under like that diversity and inclusion are different challenges that minorities, in my opinion, they face and have the toughest time getting through. So definitely, I'd say the biggest challenge for myself is like finding ways to find a company that will accept me for myself. And then on the technical aspect, as I touched on, the other challenge was like finding ways to not allow the technical limitations that the pandemic gave to us limit me from finding something that I wanted to do or finding work to get into.
That's great. I'd love to double click a little bit about what you mentioned earlier. And one question that we get a lot is, how to manage imposter syndrome when you are the only or one of a few in a room How do you deal with that, and how do you overcome it?
Definitely. So with imposter syndrome, it's not something that's always a negative, but it can be because you may feel like as a minority, when you look around a room that doesn't have a lot of minorities, you have to work 2 times as hard, 3 times as hard just to stay on the same level. And then even for our women, I mean, our women and then our minority women, like it gets a lot worse for them because then they have to work 2, 3 times as hard as a minority and then 2, 3 times as hard as a woman to like have their voice be heard on the same level. So dealing with stuff like that, it's a lot of it helps when I regroup, but also developing a good support system at work. So whether that's going into different resource groups at work, or whether that's, as I mentioned earlier, networking and finding people who may have similar thoughts like you, who may have similar common goals like you, and then getting that reassurance. That reassurance is very key because then you know you're not alone and the thoughts that you have, it's like, okay, maybe I'm the only one on my team who has these types of imposter syndrome thoughts, but I'm not the only one at the company. I've seen people who've gotten through them, and networking and getting and picking their brains, that's definitely helped a lot. But also making sure that you remind yourself you're capable. You got this role because they know you can do the work that they're presenting to you. So just, take that time to regroup, refresh, whether that's, like I mentioned, me taking a walk, or some people that's biking or hiking, going to get your hair done, whatever it is to kind of allow you to kind of sit back, collect your thoughts, calm down, and then be able to think again. I feel like that'll definitely help a lot with the imposter syndrome.
It's a great answer. And something that I think really inspires me about you is all the work that you do on the side through Student Career Studio, paying it forward, even during your lunch breaks, finding time to build connections. So tell us a little bit more about that and how you pay it forward.
Definitely. So paying it forward has definitely been something that I've been doing a lot. For myself, I was somebody who came into college not knowing what engineering was. I knew engineers made a lot of money. And me not having a lot of money growing up, it was like, I want to make money. So I started, networking a lot of different people on campus, whether that was people in the NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, or people that I would meet, for example, like one of the co-founders of Candoor, Wadud. He was actually came out and spoke to my chapter and was very inspirational, and I reached out to him not long after, and he was able to actually just give me time. Like we would meet every 3 weeks on a Friday and talk about like career goals, how to get to them, different ways to help. And those things helped me get to the position that I'm in now. So now I dedicate my time, as you mentioned, Student Career Studios. I sit on the board of directors there, where our goal is to putting opportunities out there for minority students. And I focus on the programming aspect of that, where we host internship panels where students can come out and hear students talk about their internship experiences. What was the pay like? What was the culture like? How did you deal with relocation? How did you deal with being a minority on this team? Did you feel inclusive, with the team and stuff like that? Or whether we do recruiter panels where we're actually having recruiters come out and talk about the roles that they have open, how to best suit yourself for things like that. Just finding out different ways to not rely on the school to be able to give opportunities to students, to just giving them a different way, a different platform to finding jobs that they want. And then NSBE. NSBE is another big one, the National Society of Black Engineers. As I mentioned, I sit on the conference planning committee for that as well. And with that one, that's about, quote unquote, Black engineers, but NSBE's inclusive and they're open to all races and demographics. So just being able to be a part of something to give students the hope, the vision. They're like, hey, I actually know this person and they're doing something that I want to do, or they've been able to give me insight, give me a connection. So I think the paying it forward is just, it's almost like you have to, but you don't have to. But if it's somebody did it to you, it's not much to take 30 minutes or an hour out of your week to like helping someone. And I think just seeing a smile on someone's face, or getting that email like, hey, I got the interview, or getting that text like, I just got this job, like for me, there's no other better feeling than that.
That's amazing. And we're thrilled to have you on Candoor as well to continue sort of opening these career doors through candid conversations, and love the work that you're doing on the side for these other organizations as well. I'd love to take a break from work and talk more about you as a human being outside of that. So how do you create a work-life balance for yourself, and how do you practice self-care?
Definitely. So creating a work-life balance in the tech industry, I've learned can be very difficult. Unlike some other industries, they're like typical 9 to 5 type work days. Within the tech realm, I've learned it's more like work-life management. And, I want to touch on that because some people may be like, okay, what's the difference between work-life balance and work-life management? So work-life management is something where you might not have the same steady schedule every day, but you have the flexibility to be able to do the things that you need to do every day. So for myself, I block time out of my calendar in the evenings. Like I talked to my manager about this as well, but I'm like, I enjoy working out. I notice other people, they have kids, so they'll block out their calendar to pick their kids up and have dinner with their kids. So I'm like, I don't necessarily have kids, but I still want to have a life outside of work. So I had that conversation with my manager. It's, something that I feel like you should have an open flow conversation about, especially if they're there to respect who you are as a person as well. So for me, dealing with that self-care, I enjoy going to the gym. It helps me decompress. I also enjoy watching sports. So I'll spend my Thursday evenings, my Friday evenings, my Saturdays and Sundays, if I'm watching football, if I'm going out to eat with friends and there's a TV on. So different things like that. And then video games. I typically, my late nights, if I'm like not too late, but not too early in the morning, I'm going to go and play some video games, talk to my friends back home in Texas, finding ways to making sure I'm not forgetting about some of the people that, have been there for me all my life. And then lastly, also being able to just go outside in nature. Being in California for the first time, I've never really seen hills and mountains and hike places. So seeing these different views are like some of the only places that I've seen California in the US has where you can go out and see the different parts of the world. So going on hikes and things like that, just being able to find time for yourself and doing whatever that is for you. And for myself, like I mentioned, that can be something dealing with sports. That can be going to the gym. That can be going on hikes. Even as a man, that can be going to get my feet done, whatever it is, to kind of just go out and just being able to collect your thoughts, hear yourself think, and enjoy time with family, friends, or whoever.
That's awesome. I'd love to also talk about, what has been your proudest accomplishment to date? And this could be either work related or non-work related.
I think my proudest accomplishment to date, I mentioned I was the National Society of Black Engineers president for my UTSA chapter, and we actually won National Chapter of the Year that year. And that was, I think, one of my proudest accomplishments because the amount of work that went into that with not only myself, but the team that I worked with was phenomenal, in my opinion. It was the midst of the pandemic, so I was president from March of 2020 or April of 2020 till April of 2021. So right there in the midst of the pandemic, and never before has an organization like the National Society of Black Engineers been virtual. So that was a lot of challenge, a lot of things that went into that to figuring out how can we not only have a virtual beneficial year to our students and our members, but how can we also take it up a notch and like use this as our benefit. So for us, we were able to get companies that's never been to UTSA before to come out and speak. Microsoft, for example, where our co-founder Wadud works at, like they've never been to UTSA. They've never heard of UTSA. So a lot of companies that we worked with throughout that time, like we were able to provide so many opportunities to our students. And I want to say out of the 75 members that we had throughout that 2020-2021 year, 54 of them left with a professional opportunity, whether that was research, whether that was a full-time offer, or that was an internship or co-op. And I think for me, by far, one of my proudest moments, just being able to have that ability to like give back and allowing people to grow further than they ever have before.
That's absolutely incredible. And I went to school as well during the pandemic, so I know how challenging that is to bring people together. So props to you for what an incredible accomplishment there. Sort of coming towards the end of the conversation, I'd love to understand where you see yourself or your career going in the next 3 to 5 years.
Definitely. So next 3 to 5 years, I hope my company doesn't get me for this, but I was told to be very ambitious. Never stop being ambitious and doing whatever you want to do and continuing to grow. So for myself, that can be switching internal teams at Apple. I can also be transferring, to another tech company and being able to grow from there. I'm a person who doesn't see myself being in the working industry, the engineering industry, longer than about 15, 16 years, if the good Lord, does so. So with that, I mean, I want to be able to kind of grow financially, but also being able to grow professionally in all ways that I can in the shortest amount of time. So for myself in the next at least 2 to 3 years, I can see myself touching on maybe another Apple team. And then within the next 5 years, maybe transferring out and moving up into management. I definitely want to get to that people manager role, and preferably maybe like the software space, the software EPM space, the software PM space, because there's so many different cool things that go on with software that a lot of companies do research and development. So some people find out, but then so many people don't find out. And for myself, being able to, touch that space where I can see direct impact to people in the world, I feel like would be super beneficial to me.
Yeah, and something you mentioned earlier was, the importance of really, matching your skills and your interests to your ideal path. So, kind of bringing it to the final question, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self or those just starting out in their careers?
My younger self. One for people in college, especially my freshmen, my sophomores, my high school students. Enjoy college. I didn't enjoy college until about my junior year. I feel like I wish I would have took a little bit more time my freshman and sophomore year to get out, go to events, go to parties, go to football games, go to sporting events, tapping into different organizations. That would be one thing. Another thing would be learn time management early. So whether that, it can be something so simple that you don't notice where you're like getting on a quote unquote schedule. Like, hey, this is the time every day I'm going to allow myself to study. I'm going to allow these 4 or 5 hours to be whatever I want it to be. So that's hanging out with friends, that's going out to eat, that's taking a nap. Just getting yourself in a schedule and learning how to kind of work within your schedule that fits for you. So I definitely say time management is another thing. And then the last thing is networking. I feel like I'm the biggest advocate for networking, but no matter where you are in your career, between elementary to 15 years in the professional industry, we live in a world where it's more so about who you know rather than what you know. I've seen students who were 4.0 students who graduated and couldn't find a job because they didn't know the right people to help them get into there, or they haven't, spent time on their resume, by having other people look at it. And I've seen people with the 1.5 to 2.0 GPAs who graduated college and they were able to land industries at Microsoft, at Google, at Lockheed Martin, and some of these bigger companies that a lot of people aspire to get to because they knew the right people. And don't allow your grades in school to tell your story. Allow the knowledge that you know in your head and your capabilities the opportunity to tell your story. Not everybody's a great test taker, but not everybody also can do the technical things that you can do as well. So don't limit yourself, not networking, but also don't allow what your GPA, what your quote unquote skill sets that others imply on you to limit you as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. Your story and background are inspirational, and it was such a pleasure having you today.
Yes, I thank you guys for having me here.
Of course. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Candid Conversations. If you're a college student or recent grad from an underserved background interested in connecting with Laquavious one-on-one, apply at www.candoor.io to join our platform as an advisee. If you're an industry professional who shares our mission to democratize access to transformative careers, we'd love to have you join Candoor as an advisor. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you guys.